Joining us now are Danya Perry, former Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, and Barbara McQuade, former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan. Barb, I have to ask you about what is happening in these timelines that all seem to be, to some degree, converging. I mean, we don't know what Jack Smith is doing. We don't know whether he's going to charge the former president with anything, but there's action happening. At the same time that we're hearing there are potential indictments coming down from Alvin Bragg, the DA in New York, and his investigation into Trump and the hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels, and Fani Willis, the DA in Fulton County, Georgia, who's looking into Trump's efforts to subvert the results of the 2020 election. Does it surprise you that these weather fronts seem to be converging at the same time?
I suppose it does, actually, Alex, because, you think about these cases, they are of varying degrees of complexity. The Stormy Daniels case could have been charged years ago. Here we are, 7 years after the fact that one's being charged. It doesn't surprise me that the January 6th case is taking, until now and beyond because of its complexity. And the Georgia case falls, somewhere in between. But I think it's very likely we're going to see charges next week in the Stormy Daniels case out of New York. I think we're going to see charges from Fani Willis sometime within the next month, if not sooner. And then these two cases with Jack Smith, I'm not sure, but it does get, you get the feeling they're getting close to the end just because they're putting witnesses like Mike Pence into the grand jury. So it sounds, and the lawyers, so it sounds like they're getting close to the end there. So, we could have a situation where Donald Trump is defending himself in court in 4 different places, New York, Georgia, maybe Florida if they charge Mar-a-Lago there, they could charge it in D.C., but then also in Washington, D.C. He'll have to have court appearances in all of those places. And so I imagine he will welcome it as the circus that he relishes and use it for fundraising and to claim victimhood and grievance. But it still has to be distracting to a candidate's schedule. You can't have a rally if you have to be in court.
Unless he has a rally at court. Which is not out of the realm of the possible when we talk about Donald Trump. Danya, the New York Times has some new reporting about the defenses that Trump may be testing out as it pertains to potential indictments. And I'll just read an excerpt from that reporting. According to 2 of Trump's political allies, the Trump campaign, will aim to portray any charges as part of a coordinated offensive by the Democratic Party against Trump, who is trying to become only the 2nd former president to win a new term after leaving office. Specifically, his campaign team plans on trying to connect Mr. Bragg's investigation into Trump to President Biden. Now, I understand the political strategy of that, but as a legal defense, I mean, how does that work? And what would your advice be if you were defense counsel in this situation?
It would be to find an actual legal defense. That is accurate. I mean, that has been his defense since day one. This is a political witch hunt. Here, as you just discussed with Barb, there are many different battles that are converging all at once on him. So I guess that gives him a little bit more ammunition to say that this is a concerted war against him. But that is certainly not a legal defense. He's probably testing it out, and he almost certainly shot down by a judge. That's a jury nullification argument, essentially, that does not usually fly with a presiding trial judge.
But I do have to wonder, from the prosecutor's standpoint, I mean, how much do you have to gird yourself for an onslaught of total wacko, bonkers, circus-like atmosphere? Because that seems to be what they're telegraphing at this stage. And how much does that actually affect, the trial, the rest of the investigation? If, by the way, Jack Smith is trying to continue his work, as there have already been criminal charges in the Fulton County case and the Manhattan case, how much does it complicate the situation for the prosecutors?
I think they're trying to put their heads down. Look, you've got 2 local prosecutors. You have Jack Smith on the one hand, you have the Southern District of New York on another hand, but you have a local district attorney out of Georgia and a local district attorney out of Manhattan. And this has certainly never been done.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure they're bracing themselves. They are trying to put their heads down and do the work, get the job done, be apolitical about this as much as they can, and actually try the case on its merits and as a legal matter, which is what it is. And I'm sure they are just trying to just get the distractions out of their way, sweep them aside, and focus on proving the elements, each and every element of each and every crime that may or may not be charged and prove that to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's their job.
Yeah, they're going to need a set of noise canceling headphones that are bigger than the island of Manhattan. Barb, the statement from the Trump campaign tonight on the Manhattan DA's quote, witch hunt. Americans will not tolerate radical left Democrats turning our justice system into an injustice system to influence a presidential election, which is all they want to do. I mean, one does worry in the way that Trump has a tendency to personally target individuals, the degree to which it's not just about canceling the noise, but also the concern for the physical safety of these prosecutors, these investigators.
It's a very real threat. In the same way we saw thousands of people come to the Capitol on January 6th when they believed Donald Trump's claims of a stolen election, they are going to take up the mantle in his defense as well. I think that when there are charges filed, and I think it's a when and not an if, I think there will be violence somewhere. I don't know how bad it will be, but there are unhinged people who do believe all of these things he says, that it's a witch hunt and a hoax. And there will be people who take up that mantle, in the same way we saw after the search at Mar-a-Lago, court-authorized search, and he talked about, how the FBI came in and raided his beautiful home, and a man went to the FBI office in Cincinnati with a nail gun and an AK-47 and found himself dead later in the day after a standoff with the FBI. I do fear that we're going to see those kinds of things because of the outrage that Donald Trump deliberately stirs up.
My fear of this unknown is particularly acute. Danya Perry and Barbara McQuade, thank you both for your time and expertise this evening.